You're listening to the OK Dad podcast.
Please leave your message for
Daddy.
Okay, Dad podcast. Let's start this thing.
Can you not put that on YouTube?
You're listening to my husband talk a lot.
No, man, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Okay,
I can
cool.
hear you loud and clear, man.
Perfect.
Awesome, man. Well, I do appreciate you coming on to the podcast and
Of course.
sharing your story.
Yes.
But let's just jump into it and get to work, man.
Okay.
Are you married? Do you have any kids?
Yeah, actually, I am married, and I have 2 kids with her. Then I have 2 kids from a previous relationship.
Okay.
So total of 4.
Kids?
Yeah, 4 kids, and actually 5. One of them with my wife, the older one. His name's Cameron. He actually was born still, so he was stillborn.
Oh, okay.
5
total kids.
Yeah, I know,
Man.
crazy.
Got your hands full.
Dude, you have no idea.
Well, to kind of go into it, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Robstown, Texas, which is
Okay.
about 20 minutes outside of Corpus. Grandparents had a pretty big size lot, and so I kind of was there. We had a trailer in the back of their house, and right next to it was like a cotton field. Robstown
Okay.
cotton pickers is what they're called.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of raised out there. Had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah. Not a like as big as San Antonio, but
No, nowhere
think
near.
it's still, I would consider it still kind of a small town, but it's got a lot of people in it.
It's not Corpus, so it's like outside of Corpus. So Corpus was like what we call the big city,
Yeah.
and Robstown was handful of people. So I mean, small town, 100% small town.
How many people were you in your high school class?
350.
And okay, so not that huge.
I thought it was huge, but yeah, one of my wife says like because she's from San Antonio. Her class is like 1,000, so I was just like, yeah, that's like 3 times as much.
Such a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Did you end up going to college, or what happened
did,
after high school?
After high school, and I ended up taking a semester at UT because I ended up getting a scholarship over there.
Mhm.
But I was in a band and stuff, and I was just like, that was like the least priority of my own. And so I didn't end up really finishing or even really continuing with that. And then I kind of went back, and I actually lived in Corpus Christi, and I took a couple semesters of community college there,
Mhm.
Del Mar College, and worked as a math tutor as well. And so never really got my degree, but I just kind of just took classes here and then.
Yeah. Were you still involved with your band at the time when you came back?
No, when I came back, it was kind of pretty much done.
Oh man, is that something you wanted to give up, or is that something you were just kind of like, I'm growing out of it?
Kind of grown out of it. It was just like I did dabble in it a little bit afterwards, but it was just like I had no talent, and it was just gonna go nowhere. So it's just like, why am I gonna do it?
That's how I was in high school. I definitely don't have any musical talents, no dancing talent. I was in theater arts, but I didn't have dancing down. I couldn't sing.
Yeah.
I couldn't do any of that. My friend had a band, and he was like, come on and play bass. Bass is easy. You just one chord.
Oh yeah, totally. And then
Yeah.
like it was like punk rock emo-ish, so it was just like
Yeah.
3 chords total, maybe, if that. And so it was just like, yeah, very easy stuff.
I feel like that's a big part though of being a teenager too, is like you got to join a band. You got to be
It's a rite
somewhat
of
in it.
passage. Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
it's a rite of passage, 100%.
Okay. So after you were in college, when did you first meet your first relationship
I would say it was like
with your children?
2005. Like 2005, I was like 25. Ended up having a girl with the person I was with, and yeah, it was a lot of it was me though. Like I wasn't in the right mental capacity, I guess,
Mhm.
and so it didn't work out. And then we ended up having a boy pretty much right after. They're
Oh,
only like
okay.
10,
It's
10
like
months
back to
apart.
back.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're only 10 months apart. So it's like what they call Irish twins, I guess is what. It's
Yeah.
probably not politically correct to say that, but Um, yeah. And like I said, I wasn't in the right mindset, in the right space to do that. And I fully admit that now, and I fully get that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that. And it was a whirlwind. I mean, I didn't have much money. They didn't have much money. So I mean, I remember selling CDs for diapers back when
Uh,
CDs were a thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even doing that, trying to make an attempt, what were some kind of struggles other than that you were having to deal with?
It was just that, and then just having to deal with the whole co-parenting thing. I really wasn't the best at that.
Mhm.
Um,
Were you
I
all in the
really,
same house?
oh no, so it was actually two different girls.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was that, and it was just a crazy time for me. Like I said, it was
Yeah.
just more of like I wasn't in the right headspace.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean,
Trying to balance everything at once.
yeah, yeah. And then so that was 2005, had the first kid, a daughter. Second kid was 2006. 2009 ended up moving to San Antonio.
What caused you to move up to San Antonio?
A job. It was so I wore glasses. I've worn glasses for like most of my time, and
Mhm.
every time it's like, "Oh, you're good at computers," and like me being me, I was like, "No, I'm not." And so I never wanted to get a job like working in computers.
Yeah.
And so I ended up working like auto parts. I was a diesel mechanic for a little while,
Oh,
working on
okay.
like diesel fuel injectors,
Yeah.
and I worked as an auto mechanic for a while, and then realized, you know what, maybe I probably should do like IT or should do something like that.
Yeah.
And there were no jobs like that in Corpus. My mom was moving to San Antonio. I was like, hey, let me move with you to San Antonio as well. I'm gonna be away from my two kids down in Corpus Christi,
Mhm.
but I'll be able to get like a consistent paycheck. So I mean, I'll
Yeah.
be able to pay the child support and
Yeah.
help them out in the long run. And
Right.
so I did that. Yeah, got a job fairly quickly up here in San Antonio, making some money as like a tech support. And then that's actually 2010. I met my wife, and
Where did you meet her at?
I always joke and say we met the old-fashioned way. Because the age of like Tinder and like I don't even know how that works, but
Yeah.
like online dating profiles. My friend was dating her friend, and we all kind of met together at a bar, and then her and I kind of hit it off, and we were pretty much together ever since then. That was January 4th, 2010. Because she's gonna see this and read this, know that I know that from memory.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, and then from there we ended up getting married in 2012. Had our first child actually in 2011, who was Cameron, who actually passed away. And then that was a really driving force for our change together.
Mhm.
Um, she changed career. She has her master's. She ended up getting her master's in social work. So she's a social worker. I ended up I didn't get a college degree, but I was just really focusing on like, I wanted to get a career,
Mhm.
and more along the lines of I wanted to prove to everyone really that I can be a good dad.
Yeah.
And so, because I messed up the first two. I mean, I guess I don't know why I say that, but I messed up my first two opportunities to do that. And so I went and we got married in 2012. I'm bad with dates, so
I'm the same way. I'm the
it
same
was like
exact way
there's
with
that
my
one
kids.
meme when there was just like, hey, when was your child born? And they have like that guy with like all this mathematical
With all the
equations
math
going
going
on.
around, they're like trying to
Yeah.
think. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's exactly me.
yeah. We ended up having a boy, Ethan, and then another boy a little bit later that, Connor. So he is 7, about to be 8, and Connor is 3, about to be 4.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, now from living the lifestyle like in the 20s to now like suburban dad who like with 2 kids, married with 2 kids,
Yeah.
you know.
When did it start coming together for you? Like as you guys experienced that with your
It's
first child to making that switch for your wife saying like, "Hey, I'm gonna make a change in me, get a master's," and you really focusing on the career.
she's very she's driven. We are 100% opposites. I was the guy who, in high school, when the counselor went up to you and goes, "Hey, what do you want to do for what do you want to be for when you grow up?" And I'm like, "I got nothing." I do. I mean, I've
Yeah.
no drive, no motivation, and I will freely admit that. Uh, she's the exact opposite. She's actually exactly what I needed. She's 100% driven, 100% drive, motivation, and so
So you guys are like good at balancing each other out.
yeah, like we had this tragedy that happened to us, and that kind of like bound us together. And then from there, she was kind of able to push me in these different directions. She flat out says she's a fixer, so she got these little pieces and just kind of wove them together, and then that's me now, and it
Yeah.
worked. It worked for our benefit,
Mhm.
because yeah, I mean, now we have a family and we have, you know.
Yeah, those are some tragic situations that happen, and a lot of the times families don't recover from really traumatic events, especially involving children. So
Yeah,
it's nice to see the rare case where you guys are still together, even stronger, and then you guys come out
yeah,
even stronger afterwards from
yeah.
it.
I mean, there's still bumps in the road and hiccups, but I mean, that's every relationship. But ultimately, yeah, her and I are very strong together, very committed to each other. So
Yeah. What
yeah,
so did she kind of kick you into the IT field, or were you just like, okay,
I
I'm
was
gonna
already in
accept the
it.
inevitable?
I was already in it. So I was in help desk, right? So I mean, that's kind of like the
Yeah.
jumping pool to help desk. So from there, I was like, I got tired of answering the phones, and so I started applying at these random positions. And this, I got a call back for this one position working like information security, kind of like
Hmm.
working like reading logs and stuff. And I'll never forget it because I actually asked him, like, my only really question I had for him was like, "Hey, is this on the phones?" Because I did not want to be on like a help desk on the phones anymore. And he was just like, he was taken back because he was just like, um, sometimes when you're on meetings and stuff. And that's along the lines of what his answer was. And I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
from there, that kind of led me into being more of like information security, being more risk.
Yeah.
And that's kind of led me to where I am now as like in cybersecurity, of working on like one of the big four conference, quote unquote, big four consulting conferences,
Yeah.
companies. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of, I'm naturally a person who asks a lot of questions. And so
Yeah.
that's, it's so funny because people always ask like, oh, cybersecurity, you know, this, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I just ask questions and just keep going down and down and down. And eventually your answers are being told to you. And so being able
Yeah.
to kind of meld that into to where you need to go.
Yeah. San Antonio is supposed to like UT San Antonio, UTSA is supposed to be a really good school for cybersecurity
Oh
and
yeah,
IT.
UTSA is like one of the best in the nation at IT cybersecurity. Uh, we have, you know, the Fort Sam, the military bases, so they're always hiring. We have USAA, we have Rackspace, we have like
Yeah.
all these different companies, it's that are coming here to San Antonio. So yeah, I mean, it's turning into like a tech hub, I guess.
Yeah. So even coming from like that diesel mechanic type of work to
Yeah,
IT.
complete 180. So like, yeah, growing up next to a farm,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I
Literally
remember,
next to a field of cotton to, you
yeah,
know,
like so much so I remember as a kid being chased by the farmer with a shotgun because a cousin of mine and I, like he had just plowed the fields, and a cousin of mine and I ran through the fields and we're kicking the little,
oh, those
I don't know what they're,
mounds.
the mounds, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was yelling some expletives in Spanish and like actually had his shotgun out.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he would have pulled the trigger, but we just like ran away. And so yeah, I mean, so going from that to like working cybersecurity suburbs of San Antonio is very, very different from where I
Yeah.
started.
That's funny. I said that to my wife the other day. I'm like, I guess now I'm a suburban dad. I guess I can
Yeah,
also be like a hashtag suburban dad. Also, I was like, that's a good name for a podcast too. And
it is.
she was laughing about it. Um,
Well,
when you were
go ahead.
when
No, I was saying,
you
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and so like I'm very adamant about what actual emo music is. Like I'm really into like American football, and like to me though it's like emo. And I was joking with a friend of mine. I was like, that's like dad rock now. I mean, if you think about it, like
100%.
all like the late '90s, early 2000s, like quote unquote alternative rock or like metal or punk or whatever. Even like punk. That's dad rock now,
Oh,
100%.
oh, definitely. I'm at work and
Yeah,
I don't know how many times I have to get up and away from my desk because like my what I do involves going outside quite a bit, coming all around the office. So I have my laptop open and I ask people like, hey, what do you want me to play? Like I'll literally listen to anything. I just want something on because I have
yeah,
tinnitus in my ears. So I was like, I just need something on.
yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, nobody will say anything. They're like, oh, whatever you want. I'll put on disco, I'll put on anything.
Hmm.
And if nobody ever asks, I'm just playing like 90s alternative, 2000 alternative.
Yeah.
And the age of the people working now, they don't even know half of the songs. And I'm like, man, now I know I'm 30. Like when the people
Oh
that you
yeah.
work with don't
Like
even recognize these songs. And
I'm
it's like they're normal. To me, it's like Red Hot Chili Peppers just playing very super basic. And
yeah,
yeah, people have never heard of them.
I'm 41. So like the company I work for hire people, they hire people straight out of like college. And so like we're talking like 21, 20, whatever. Like
Yeah.
technically I'm old enough to be their dad. And so I'll be like listening to, yeah, like Nirvana, like the
Yeah.
first, actually the second Weezer album, which to me is one of like my favorite albums.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, this came out before I was born. And I was just like, oh.
You don't need to say that. Like, why are you bringing that up right now? Like,
Yeah, so
nobody asked you when this came out.
no one, yeah.
Yeah, that's 100% how I feel at work now. And
Mhm.
like walking around, like making jokes on my back and stuff, just as I'm walking
Yeah,
around. Man, they really make you feel your age now.
they
And
do.
I don't, I don't feel like we're that old. And then I like think back and I'm like, that's exactly what my dad said. He was the
Yeah,
same.
like I didn't feel like it either, but then I have a knee brace.
Yeah.
So like that's like a constant reminder. Um that and then like my 3-year-old thinks I'm 100, so
Yeah, that's how my daughter is, and she's like 11, 12. And
yeah.
even then she's still like, no, I thought you were like 50. And I'm like, really? That's how old do you
Hmm.
think I am? Like your
Yeah,
grandparents have a lot more wrinkles than I do, and you think I'm 50?
yeah, but then like if you think about it, like my mom had me when she was young. My mom had me when she was like 18, 19. Like she had just turned
Yeah.
19, like she just turned 19 and then 2 days later she had me. And so like it's weird going back at it. So like whenever I was like 5, she was still like in her mid 20s, and I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I thought she was old. I mean, when I was 5, dude, she was ancient. And
Yeah.
now looking at it back now, like my 7, 8-year-old, who's gonna be 8-year-old now, he was just like, yeah, I'm a fossil compared to him.
Comparatively. Yeah.
Comparatively, yeah.
When you were growing up, did you have your dad and your mom in the house?
Uh, sort of. Like, so mom was there. Dad was a truck driver who, I just flat said he was into drugs. So he
Yeah.
was kind of there every now and then. Mom was depressed. She really, she didn't realize it until like a couple years ago.
Hmm.
But she was always asleep. She was always like in her room. She really wasn't around. And
Yeah.
my brother, I have one younger brother who's like 4 years younger than me. He and I were both lucky that we're so close to my grandparents on my mom's side.
Yeah. On the same
Like,
lot, right?
Yeah, like
Okay,
actually
that's
literally
good.
on there a lot. And so I would have breakfast, lunch, and dinner at my grandmother's house. She would make, the
Yeah,
tortillas, and she would make, rice, beans, and what she called carne, which,
yeah,
was whatever meat. I don't even know what it was, but you ate it. If you didn't, you weren't hungry apparently.
yeah.
So yeah, but like having like my grandfather around was like so instrumental for like both my brother and I, as far as like
No, definitely.
having like that father figure and having like that person around.
Yeah.
And so he kind of put these morals into us, and that I 100% believe that's kind of what quote unquote saved us. Because I mean, like being a product of like someone who does drugs, the chances of you doing drugs is like 75% or something like that. And
Yeah.
so the fact that
Yeah.
we didn't is pretty good. And my dad's around now, and he's just like, I'm working to support my kids, and I'm like, dude, we're old now. It's you're
Yeah.
you're like 30 years late to be saying
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's so good that your parents were there. I think one of the reasons that I do believe that people need a father figure, I don't think it necessarily has to be a father, like the father, the dad, I think it just has to be a male role model. And not to say that the women that raise children by themselves aren't strong enough to do that. But especially when raising a boy or a girl, when they see a male role father or role figure, role model, treat women, men, children, elderly people, they know how a man should act. And so having your grandfather there, I think you said it well. Like that was
Yeah.
very instrumental.
It children children repeat what they see, good or bad. And so if they see you doing the bad, then they're gonna do the bad. If they see you doing the good, they're gonna do the good. So I mean, I firmly believe in that. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm in a handful of like dad groups on Facebook, and oftentimes people post about different questions that they have. And I saw this post maybe a day or 2 days ago,
mhm,
and somebody put, I don't understand what's happening with my son. He has these horrible tantrums. He's yelling, he's screaming. And I've tried everything. I've tried, hitting him so hard. I've tried beating him, sending him to his room, but I can't stop it. And I'm reading through the comments and seeing, what people's insights are. And one of them, I think, hit the nail on the head. He's like, well, if you're hitting him and he's screaming, this is where he's picking it up. He's picking it up from somebody else. The hitting's okay, the yelling, shouting.
yeah.
And I wonder if people know that, know that they're living that, know how to break the cycles.
So growing up, raised by my grandparents, essentially, I was raised old Mexican way. So if we acted up, right, we got the chancla. If we acted up, we got the faja. We acted up, got the mata moscas, which is the fly swatter. I think
Yeah.
one time I had an iron thrown at me.
Yeah.
Um, and it took. I was 100%. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Just because. And I'm not saying I haven't, maybe once, but whatever. My wife put it this way, and she's a social worker. I actually believe with this 100%. If your child does something like, let's just say, hit another kid, or let's do this thing, how are you going to tell them that hitting's bad if you're hitting them?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes perfect sense to me, because you're like, hey, or even with yelling's bad, you shouldn't do that, so let me yell at you for yelling.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense in my eyes. I mean,
Yeah.
because like or you're gonna think, imagine if you being a kid, right? So another part of information security, or we can really whatever, is like putting yourself in someone else's shoes, like empathy, which is sorely missed right now. But anyway, if you're that kid and you yelled at someone, how would you feel if you're being yelled at for yelling at someone? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And you mentioned dad groups. I'm actually in a couple of dad groups as well on Facebook, a couple of dad gaming groups, because I still video game. So
Yeah.
and that was one of the questions, is like, one of the things was like, this one dad was like, hey, like, do you spank? And I'm like, no, I don't. because of that reason.
Yeah.
So
And it makes total sense. I think even when it comes to spanking, I'm still on the fence about it. If you listen to some of the other episodes, I'm never one side or the other.
yeah, I mean that's fine.
I think personally, there's a line. I think once you reach a certain age, it's out of question. If you can talk and you can reason, I don't think you need to hit your
It's also
kids.
a certain age of like even like just say honest say what it is. It's like their pain tolerance, right? And so
Right.
the object is to like make them hurt a little. When you're like 7, 8, how much is that going to take for that to actually happen to get your point across?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
My
yeah,
my grandmother used to take care of me summers while my parents
yeah,
would go to work because they were both working full time.
yeah.
And I love my grandmother, and she's the best, and she's not in the greatest health now, but she's still going. She's 95.
Oh damn.
And I was talking about her today because she ended up in the hospital because she was having some chest pains. And so I'm thinking back, I'm recollecting, I'm telling my wife some stories about how great she was and how she was raising me. And then I remember that she was she was the typical Mexican grandmother. If
Mm.
you were doing something wrong, she would get mad at you. And I told her I was that kid. I was necio, I was
Oh yeah, totally.
rowdy. And I remember there was a time where my parents were gone. I was home. It was in summer. My grandmother was babysitting me and my sister. And somehow I got on the roof. It's a 1-story house. I was on the roof. And I knew my grandmother I knew she couldn't see me up there.
Hmm.
And of course, I was probably 8, 7, somewhere in that age range. And I knew she couldn't see me, but her being an adult definitely knew I was up there. She was inside. You heard the footsteps. She's coming out and she's yelling at me. She's yelling at me in English, yelling at me in Spanish.
Yeah.
And as she goes around to the back, I'm laughing up there, and I go to the front. She goes around the front, and as a kid, it's hilarious. So I do that a couple times, and then I know I'm in trouble, so I'm gonna jump off the roof, and then I'm gonna sprint to my room, and everything's gonna be fine. I'm gonna tell her that I was in here the
Oh
whole
yeah.
time. So I jumped down, made it even worse, right? She knew that I had jumped down. I didn't even make it to my room, and yeah, she, took her shoe off, started beating me,
Yeah.
and that was normal to us.
Oh yeah. It's a different time back then. I mean, I would jump off houses regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, there
Yeah.
was always a ladder there. Like my grandfather was a carpenter. He retired and then he became a carpenter and then a painter. And so there was always like ladders around. And so
Mm,
we'd always just use them to climb up or whatever and jump off of stuff, random stuff. I had a cousin who was like a year older than me who lived the next street over.
mhm.
And where we lived in the neighborhood, there was a lot of vacant lots. There was just like no houses. And so, yeah, we would just walk like straight to each other's house
Yeah.
until finally, whenever they built a house in between both of our houses, we would still walk through that person's house and like not even really, I mean, so
Yeah.
like we were kids, we didn't really know that we were kind of like quote unquote trespassing until they built a fence. But even that, we would just go and jump the fence.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, we would totally just climb houses and jump off houses, not even our own, just random houses. And then I remember my grandfather getting me a BB gun, and that was like one of my first like memories. I think maybe kindergarten, maybe even
Oh
younger than
wow. Yeah.
kindergarten. Yeah, and there was like an abandoned house next to my grandmother's house, and you can bet every single one of those windows was shot out. And then finally, when the owner came over there, he was like, "What the hell went? What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
Like I like my grandfather also questioned it, and I was just like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. So as growing up in that kind of situation, having those experiences, how are you trying to are you trying to emulate any of that with your sons?
Trying to emulate some of it, like the values and stuff like that. I mean, discipline, probably not, but like values, going outside. Um, I'm a firm believer of like get the kids outside.
Yeah.
Limit technology, limit. even though I myself am like a video gamer and I myself am like into like, that's my career, that's my profession.
Hmm.
But get them outside. I mean, they could learn that later. I mean, I wasn't to my late teens until I started messing with that stuff, and I turned out fine.
Yeah.
So like right now, them being 7, 8, um, 7-year-olds in like a camping group, like a local scout group. Actually, it's a local scout group.
Okay.
Not the Boy Scouts, so it's a different one. And shout out to them if I actually remember how to pronounce the first name. But they're big on going outside, and they're big on being inclusive, being on like, LGBTQ plus,
Yeah.
whatever you are. Let's go outside. Let's explore nature. Let's be
Yeah.
scouts. And so we joined them up in that, and we go camping. We even camp in our backyard.
Yeah.
Behind my house is a green belt. We'll
Oh,
go
nice.
explore the green belt. 7-year-old's big into Harry Potter. We'll go and get a twig. I'll like smooth that out with a knife, and then, hey, look, that's a new wand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm big on that. So like kicking the kids outside, making them go outside. Like that was what I was taught. That's kind of how I was when I was younger. I mean, yeah, you kind of have to limit it now because there's, more known. I mean, there was stuff going on back then, but like there's
Hmm.
more known, like, bad people out there.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so kind of like protect them, limit them there. But like, yeah, throw them outside.
I think
So
that's
I've kind of done that.
one of the big things that we're not able to do is break tradition and values and family, especially
Yeah,
being from the Hispanic background. I like how you said you're not doing the same kind of discipline thing.
yeah,
What do you think changed that for you or changed your mindset? Was it your
hundred
wife?
percent my wife,
Yeah.
100% her. Yeah. Um, and then even the school. So before COVID, my older son went to the Discovery School of San Antonio, which is off of I-10 and West Avenue. Shout out to them. Amazing school.
Yeah.
They do more of play as you learn as you play. And their disciplinary is, I forget the name of the way they do it. But it's redirection. It's a lot of redirection. It's a
Mm,
lot of that. And that works a good amount of time without even you yourself, because like you don't want to yell, you don't want to be angry, you don't want to be all that stuff. And so if you're able to do that and that works, you just keep it going.
yeah. That my son's 3, so he's at the point to where we're right at the edge, I think, because if I tell him I'm going to spank him, I can do a tap like that, and
Yeah.
if I say it was a spank, then he takes it and he cries to his room or whatever needs to be corrected. So it's good that we're at that point, but I think we're on the point of like spank shouldn't be part of it anymore.
Yeah.
So he's throwing his crazy tantrums, and I'm just trying to give him some time. I read another post, and usually advice that's given from people, they're not. It's
Uh-huh.
not coming from parents, but one of them was, if a kid's yelling, you should just embrace them, and that's all they need. And I read that maybe an hour or two before I was putting him to bed,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you know what, I have the patience of a rock, so I'm fine with it. So of course, he was throwing a tantrum, and so I was like, oh, come here, like all you need is a hug. So I'm
Yeah.
hugging him, and we have a little Nest camera that's there, and I didn't move for about 8 to 10 minutes, and the whole time he's screaming like, I don't want to go to bed, I don't want to go to bed, and I'm
Yeah.
just talking to him. I know it's fine, like we got to go. As soon
Yeah.
as you calm down, we'll go. And if you fast forward the video, like I'm barely moving, I'm talking to him, and I'm just like this, and he's just there like, I don't want to go to bed. The whole time he ends up calming down, and I'm thinking the whole time, whoever wrote that didn't have a didn't have a tantrum kid,
Yeah. I
growing up.
mean, it's kids are different, man. My 3-year-old, my older son, he is very much a rule follower. 100%, like a rule, just rule. So much so, whenever we were potty training him, we like had to tell him, like, we could say, okay, say it's potty time, then you can go potty. To this day, he will not go potty until that is acknowledged. So he'll be yelling all over the house. He's like, "It's potty time." If I don't say okay, or if my wife doesn't say okay, he won't go. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that kid will literally piss his pants. Um, but that's according to him, that's the rule. And so
Yeah.
he does this. Whereas like my 3-year-old, he probably was going through potty training while I was doing this. He peed in his bed. And we asked him, like, "Hey, Connor, did you pee your bed?" And he's like, "No, Romeo did." Romeo from the PJ Masks.
Yeah.
He was like, "Yeah, Romeo did. I didn't do it." And I'm just like, the ease of which this kid just goes and blames a fictional character for peeing in his bed makes me really like scared.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
because that's me. That's how I was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, kids are different. So, like, my older son going to bed, he was kind of hard. He really, really was kind of hard. My younger son, my 3-year-old, he's kind of easy. Like, he acknowledges when it's time for him to go to bed, and so I'll go tell him, like, "Hey, let's go change into pajamas." He himself starts taking off his clothes to get ready to
Yeah.
put pajamas on. Then I'll put him on him, and then he kind of like, "Okay, let's go read some stories now." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, let's go read some
Yeah.
stories." And yeah, sometimes like today he was kind of like fussing, but that's because he woke up like at 6 in the morning and he was already
Yeah.
asleep. So yeah,
Do you have you ever let them sleep with you, or did they always have a designated bedtime in bed?
they've always had a so we're strict on a sleep schedule. A sleep schedule, I think, is very valuable. Other parents listening to this, sleep schedule. When you're sleep training, do a sleep schedule for your sanity, for their sanity. Kids need, 12 to 14 hours of sleep. With the sleep schedule, you're able to do that. You're also able to get time to yourself because you need that as well as parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were kind of big on that. Designated spots. That being said, there has been times when they've woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I've just said, "Fuck it, come to our bed."
Yeah.
I don't know if you're supposed to cuss here, but
Oh no, you're fine. Anything goes here, man.
Yeah,
We never, my daughter who's 12, she's my stepdaughter. So I met her when she was 6,
yeah,
and she was used to sleeping in the bed.
yeah,
And since me and my wife were together, I had other rooms in the house. So she was able to have her own room. So
yeah,
we did up her whole room. She still had trouble sleeping by herself. So she
yeah,
would come in, and it was a struggle getting her back in her bed. And she's 6, going on 7. And my son never once let him sleep in the bed with us. And I'd say since he was able to start going into bed, he's been on a sleep schedule. He's our schedule like baby. Like 8
yeah,
o'clock, he was asleep. Like my son now, who's 6 months old, 7:30 to 8:30 is his bedtime already, and he's usually out unless he wakes up in the middle of the night, which he has been because he's teething.
yeah,
But my son Asher, yeah, since he was able to get into his bed at 8 o'clock, it's been bedtime. And then when he's been able to get more motor skills and more things going, he would come down the dead of night, just say, "Hey, my lullaby's turned off. Can you turn them back on?" And
yeah,
then the other night, and so he's 3 going on 4. The other night, he comes downstairs and he's like, "Can you turn on my lullabies?" And we're like, "Yes, we'll turn it on." It's like 3 o'clock at night. "Okay, thank you." And then he slams the door. And so we have a 6-month-old in the
yeah,
room still in his bassinet. And maybe not even 40 seconds later, he comes back in. He's like, "Hey, the lullabies turned back on. Thank you." Slams the door again.
yeah.
And so it's like, oh my gosh, like that's the funny thing about kids, they're
They're
getting their
different.
personality.
They're so different.
He just wants to come back in and tell you, like, "Hey, it worked. Thank
Yeah,
you."
like my 3-year-old loves the Paw Patrol, but for the life of him, he hates Tracker of the Paw Patrol. And so, like, I remember one time at night, he opened his door. He yells, "I don't like Tracker," because he has like a little stuffed Tracker. Threw him out of his room, closed the door, and went back to bed.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was it. I was just like,
Yeah.
kid
Let
does
it be
not like
known.
Tracker. He's just like, I don't like Tracker. And he's done that before. Even like we'll wake up in the morning and there's like specific books in front of his door, and I was like, who put that there? So I mean, maybe whenever we were asleep, he woke up and he threw it out of his own room,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean,
They're so hilarious, man, when they do that.
crazy.
Well, as
Yeah,
you're bringing them up, are you finding it difficult to parent the way everything is right now? I've been asking that lately. It seems
it's
everything's so polarizing, no matter what the topic is.
it's it it is. It's always like one of those things. It's just like, oh, what do you do? We we're very fortunate. We bought a house in October, the October before, it hit, I guess, or whatever,
Yeah.
which is like in March. So we bought a house, so we were fairly new to the house. Everything was fairly new to us. Um, we just kind of hung out here. I mean,
Yeah.
we're very fortunate that we were able just to kind of stay here. Everything was still kind of new to us, and so we were big on going outside. So the cool thing about living in San Antonio is there's a state park, 45 to an hour minute drive, north, south, east, west. You can go exploring, even like Brackenridge. You go to Brackenridge, like
Oh yeah.
close to the river right there. I mean, like that, like to a kid, that's awesome.
Hmm.
Almost Basin Park's a really nice park to go to too. And so you're able to do all that. And so we were able just to kind of function off that. Um, School. So the 7-year-old is homeschooled. This is his second year at homeschool. But we were comfortable enough to send our 3-year-old to the Discovery School just
Yeah.
because we're very cautious, like extremely cautious. Like my wife and I are both vaccinated, but we're still also very cautious as far as like
Hmm.
everything, quarantining away from people. That's just how we feel. That's just how we are.
Yeah.
But we were comfortable with the Discovery School and their safety protocols. They have they're able to have air purifiers in every single room of the
Oh, that's
school.
good.
It's a small school,
Yeah.
like incredibly small school, and they have the door front and back open, and they're able just be outside a lot. They're able to do that,
Yeah.
and so the 3-year-old's going there. He was kind of against it at first, just because he was kind of at home all the time, and I
Hmm.
feel that's a lot of the kids starting school for the first time
Yeah.
because they're quote unquote COVID kids, so they're used to kind of just being at home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so getting him out there, I think, is a kind of a culture shock. But the cool thing about kids is they adjust very easily and very
Oh
quickly.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And that structure too. Or I remember taking my son to daycare. He was not having it.
yeah,
And then he has some really good weeks and months, and then all out of nowhere, he's not wanting to go for a few days. Then all of
yeah,
a sudden he's wanting to go out, and he's like, am I going to school today? This morning I woke him up and I'm like, you ready for school? And he's just looking at me. He's like, yeah, you can get me dressed. He just raises his hands up and
yeah,
I'm changing him. He's like, all right, bye Lulu, we're going to school.
yeah.
But
Now,
they
my
adjust.
mother-in-law, my mother-in-law retired, and then my father-in-law retired a little bit after that, and so they are both able to help my wife and I as far as like babysitting whenever we need babysitting. Like Tuesdays and Thursdays are both kind of meeting heavy days for both of us.
Yeah.
My wife's work is very, very extremely flexible, so she's able to take time off during the day to do the homeschooling
Yeah.
and to just kind of help with like the younger kid as well, taking him to school. I am sort of flexible, so I'm able to kind of take them to school as well. And
That's
so
always good because
yeah, we're
having
very blessed.
two full-time jobs is
Yeah,
difficult, especially if you want to have a genuine relationship with your children.
yeah. And
I
so
I don't think I got that from my dad. He definitely tried, but he put a lot of emphasis on his work. So when it came down to my extracurricular activities or needing to drive somewhere, needing something, bought from a store for like one of my theater arts performances, I remember it was my mom on the
mm,
weekends or at the end of the day, doing stuff. If I had a theater arts performance, it was my mom going to all three, and my dad would come to maybe one performance every like other play just because he was
mhm,
worn out from work. So the stuff that you remember goes a long way, even if it's not how it actually happened, because kids growing up, they don't
Yeah.
have an eidetic memory. It's their perception of reality. So I think that was an eye opener for me and my wife, because my wife was a full-time nurse. So she was a full-time RN. She was working through the pandemic. And while I was working, my hours got cut. I remember driving and then getting an email from corporate saying, "Hey, we're cutting everybody's hours so we don't have to fire anybody. The bad thing
Yeah.
is everybody's got to go to, half." And so I remember letting my wife know. She was able to keep working through the whole pandemic and we were able to stay afloat. And at the time, we're trying to manage our money well. So we're going through
Mhm.
Dave Ramsey University at the time. And we kind of use that year to level set our finances.
Yeah.
And after that is when we decided, like, hey, the nation's still on edge everywhere. It's hard to meet with family or group of friends without somebody picking a topic that's so divisive. Nobody can just enjoy each other's company
That's so
for the time
weird.
being.
It's so crazy because like there's a divide when there used to not be. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
everyone's just like everyone has their own opinions, but I mean, whatever, just like fuck you, let's go have a beer afterwards.
Yeah.
Now it's just like I hate you, and I'm just like that's so odd to me.
Yeah, it's so sad
It is.
thinking that, because I've seen so many relationships just end. People delete social medias, block
Yeah.
people, and even to family, people that they've known for
Yeah.
years. And it's so crazy because I feel like years ago we were able to talk about something, and even if you were so passionate about it and you disagreed vehemently, like you just didn't like it,
Yeah.
you would still, like you said, let's go to the bar, let's get a drink after all this is done.
Yeah.
And you can't do that now. But being the way it is right now, I think we were able to also take a step back and say, hey, homeschooling might be good for not only learning and her education, because my daughter, this is the first month that she's done of homeschooling. My wife's been doing an amazing job
Yeah.
and showing me the curriculum and what they're working through. And I like that it's a lot of real world stuff that you're teaching or that you're learning.
Yeah.
So even stuff that she's telling me, you can do some classes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know
No.
what I'm going to teach her. And today we were going to the museum downtown,
Yeah.
and Cindy's needing my daughter, she's needing some stamps. So instead of getting them like I was supposed to do 2 weeks ago, I told her, look up how much stamps are. And
Mhm.
so she goes, I don't know. And I was like, well, look it up, find out how to look up stuff. Cause that's half of the part of being an adult, is you don't have to know the answers, but you need to know how
How to
to
find the
find
answer.
answers.
Yeah.
So she finds it. And I'm like, okay, where do we buy stamps? She's like, I don't know, the store. I'm like, well, what store? Find out what store, and then I want you to take us to that store and I'll drive. And
Yeah.
so this is like the first time that she's using Google Maps. And if you were driving with a regular passenger, you'd probably be super upset because she's like, turn left right now. And as we're driving, my wife is like, that's
Yeah.
not how it works. You need to tell them ahead of time. So we do a couple turnarounds, we swing left, we swing right, letting her know it's stuff that that a child doesn't know. Hey, this is a road that we're looking at. We're looking at Bandera Road. How do you know that we're on Bandera Road?
Mhm.
She tells me, I don't know. Well, if you look up at every intersection, at every corner, there's going to be the street sign. And she's like, oh, okay, I get this.
Yeah.
We go in, we buy the stamps. I told her, I'm going to buy them, but you're going to do the talking. You're going to do the asking. So she
Yeah.
goes in, she gets it. And the lady was super nice too. She kind of clicked immediately. She knew what was going on. She goes, well, I hope you
Yeah.
had a great experience your first time at the post office. And I think that's truly things, because we joke about, you know, us being old, we joke about how, what is the first time without our parents and I got to set up a doctor's appointment? My mom's not going. Like, how often do we joke about stuff like that?
Yeah.
And I think it's vital too. So seeing that, was it the pandemic that made y'all do that switch?
Yeah. 100%. It was the pandemic. It's funny because a lot of the kids switched to the virtual school. And so there was a meme and I saw, and I still think it's hilarious, where there's like a 5-year-old sitting in front of a laptop, like, hey, I can't read, but I'm expected to answer these emails. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, that doesn't make like again, that doesn't make sense to me. And
Yeah.
so you mentioned your wife. Shout out to her. Shout out to my wife who like does 99% of the homeschool. I
Oh,
mean,
hell yeah.
and I like some of the homeschool groups and we've been to the co-ops we've gone to. I don't know if you have done a co-op yet.
Not
Some
yet.
some of the co-ops we've gone to, it's like all like moms, and so like they're busting their ass doing this, and so they are doing an like amazing job. It's we're slacking. I mean, the dads are
Yeah.
slacking, and I will freely admit that. Um, but yeah, like yeah, they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's good though, because even though it took that, there is a silver lining, and
oh yeah,
that family connection that you're building now, if you think about it, 2 years
it's
ago or pre-pandemic, it probably wasn't going there, and it probably wasn't even in that trajectory. That probably wouldn't have been anything that we would have even
it's
thought about.
it's a family connection, and then it's going back to like the virtual. So like we thought about doing a virtual, but it would be from like 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. to like 3:30 p.m. And I'm like, I don't even work that long. Like
Yeah.
throughout a normal day, and our kids expect to be in front of like an iPad or like a computer doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas like we're doing homeschool. As a second grader, he's able to finish a full day's work like within 2 hours. And so to think of all that time wasted just trying to like, and I've seen some of like those like the pictures of, like the virtual, like it's like a teacher having to repeat herself over and over and over again,
Oh yeah.
because kids are kids. They're able just to talk whatever, and so maybe even able to listen to the teacher. I mean,
Hmm.
because I have some teacher friends, and that's kind of what they say, and I'm just like, it's very difficult to even do some of that stuff. But like with the homeschool, I mean, yeah, you got to put the work in, but the benefits to me, I think, are really, really good. Um, we love the Discovery School, and that's our love for that school and like the values that they bring and the values that they teach. That's the reason why we're setting our 3-year-old there.
Yeah.
The thing with that school is that it only goes up to first grade. After first grade, I mean, we may still be homeschooling. Who knows?
Yeah.
We may not actually go back to private school. It's up in the air. I mean, go
Yeah.
into like the public school or private school or whatever.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll
Yeah.
be a lot better. Just things in general in the
It
world.
it will. It will. I mean, because you got to think positive. It will. But even that, I mean, just like the benefits of like homeschool, I think it's just like been really, really good. Like there was a girl down the street from my house. She was homeschooled, and like the parents like homeschooled. Like the son as well. He's actually
Mhm.
over at College Station right now. He on scholarship. The daughter was doing very, very well as well. She actually also got a scholarship, I think, to College Station as well.
Oh
But I
wow.
mean, like, yeah, I mean, with homeschool, you're able to do all that. And the thing with
Yeah.
what I've learned from colleges, they like homeschoolers because they learn how to teach themselves independently.
Hmm.
And that's kind of exactly what you do in college. You don't really like
Yeah.
go to class to do that. Like you just kind of get
100%.
assignments, and
Yeah.
yeah. And so yeah, I mean, this is a debate between my wife and I, because I'm more of I'm concerned about the social aspect, as far as like the kids kind of, how do they get that social aspect, because I really think that's vital. She's trying. We haven't maybe come up with the whole 100% solution yet, but that's the part of like, I guess, being parents and
Yeah.
working together as a couple. It's just like, okay, we'll try these different things. And I will admit I'm closed-minded sometimes, and I'm very stubborn. And so like I'm like, oh no, it's wrong, blah 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 blah. My wife is the person who comes back and says, okay, but give it a chance. You don't know until
Yeah.
you've given it a chance. And so now that things are kind of opening up a little bit, she has gone out and met some co-ops and
Yeah.
met some like different like homeschool groups. And so yeah, my son is able to kind of go and meet these other friends. He's terrible at names, so he has
That's my
no idea
daughter.
what the names those kids are, but he plays with them. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that is something that I will probably always be worried about.
Yeah.
My daughter likes theater arts. She was enjoying theater arts. She was getting into it. and did a performance through the pandemic. It was so weird, and it wasn't what I was used to when being part of a performance, the
Yeah.
way they had rehearsals going, and it was all with the precautions and whatnot. It was just so irregular to me.
Yeah.
And now that we're homeschooling, we found a theater arts business that only caters to homeschool kids. And what I really enjoy about that is when you're in school, you're only in school with people that are within a year age gap of you. So
Hmm.
every grade, you're with somebody exactly like you, exact age group. And
Yeah.
when you go into theater arts, you're still, within 2 to 3 years of your age group that you're hanging around with. Everybody clicks up.
Hmm.
And in this class that she's in every Wednesday, she goes and it's a mix of all kinds of kids.
Yeah.
So they just had some kind of performance, murder mystery, improv dine-in that they did. And the youngest kid was probably 7. The oldest kid was 18.
Oh wow.
And there was such a mix. And I'm always worried about, is she going to get along with other kids? Are they going to
Hmm.
get along with her? And everybody there is interacting with one another. And that's how it is. And when you go out, when you get outside the public education system, when you get out into the real world,
Yeah, they're not
you're
always the
interacting
same
with
age.
everybody.
Yeah. And you mentioned the museum. Like, I love the museum. The museum, I think, is like great. I even have a good time at the museum.
Yeah.
My wife and I are very cautious, and so we actually decided to go there like during the summer, and it was like packed, like completely packed. It was got kind of uncomfortable for us. Well, the benefits of being homeschool is you could go like at, you know,
Yeah.
11 o'clock in the morning on a weekday, and there's a lot less people there. And
Oh
there's
yeah.
actually like the botanical garden that caters, that actually has like homeschool day. There's a lot of those different places that actually have homeschool days specifically for them. Uh, my son is in a garden co-op at Full Harbinger Park, and so they give him like a plot um, to go and build a garden, and they have like master gardeners there that show him how to do everything.
Yeah.
But that's like from like 9 a.m. to like 11 a.m. And so a normal like school kid's not going to be able to go to that because they're at
Yeah.
school. So I mean, it's a lot of homeschool kids that go do that, and so be able to do stuff like that, I think, is like awesome.
Yeah. There's so many resources too. When my wife initially told me about it,
Yeah,
I said no. No, that's crazy. And the next day she was doing her research. She loves doing research,
yeah,
and God bless her for that. Everything she's pulling up, I'm about it. There wasn't anything she was saying that I
yeah,
didn't dislike, right? There was nothing that I didn't like. And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." I don't know. So then my only pushback was, "Well, how do you take her out of school? Like, what do we need to do to take her out of school?" She's like, "In Texas, you don't need to do anything. You just
just
need to
write
tell
a
them."
letter.
Yeah.
Just write, all you
She
gotta
goes,
do.
she goes, "You just need to tell them that we're taking her and we're homeschooling her." And
Yeah,
I'm like, there's no
yeah.
way that's it. And
And
she's
then
like,
like,
"No, 100%."
yeah, just write a letter. And then what about curriculum? Whatever.
Yeah.
There's in Texas, there's no basic curriculum.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like there's like some, like I know some like homeschoolers are like they're not teaching math. I don't agree with that because I think you need math. But I mean, yeah, I mean you can, if you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean, ultimately, you want to set your kid up for success
Oh
any
yeah.
way you know how. If your child's weak at something, maybe you can spend more time on that subject. If you're tired, if your child excels in other things, you can
Mhm.
expedite those too. But I love how you're able to do basically whatever you want to show them, or whatever they can embrace
Yeah.
or have appreciation for. So just like that gardening one, just like
Yeah.
improv, instead of once a week, or once every other nth day, we're going to
Yeah.
have rehearsal or maybe a class, and the class isn't hands-on, it's a lot of book work. So
Yeah.
I love that it's definitely hands-on work.
Yeah. And I was the one who was skeptical against of the homeschool. Like my wife wasn't. She was just like, we're gonna do it. And then she was like, we gotta buy the curriculum. I'm like, how much is that? She's like $1,300. And I was just like,
Yeah.
ouch.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she got it was like a box full of all these different books and stuff, and it was like everything you needed for all of these different subjects, and it ended
Yeah.
up working out. Um, my wife is kind of like your wife. She is 100% a researcher. She went to law school when she first met me. Um, so she has that mindset of just like, she wants to get all the details, all the facts.
Yeah.
She's into true crime, stuff like that, like every wife, I guess.
Yeah.
And so she's very like detail oriented, and like, so I'm not. I'm just like, whatever, just do
Yeah.
whatever, and I'll just pay for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's like, yeah, she found every avenue. She was on those Facebook groups, like the mom social homeschool Facebook groups. She's now one of the people that before she was asking questions, now she's answering questions.
Yeah.
She has it down pat. She has a pretty good down system.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great to hear, man. Well, as we kind of close this out, Eric, I like to finish it with fatherly advice, man. So if you had, I always say, if you had all the dads listening, all the moms listening,
Yeah.
what would be one piece of advice you would want to leave them with?
Listen and interact with your kids. I mean, I think that's like the main thing. Like, they'll tell you what they want. They'll tell you what they need. I mean, instead of having to struggle doing that, just like they'll tell you. Like, they're really smart. They're very adept, and they know what's happening around them.
Yeah.
You really need to give them credit.
Yeah. 100%, man.
Yeah.
All right, Eric. I think we can close this one out. I always forget too to add in, if you want to add in any plugs or any social media accounts or anything, your gamer tag, anything. I always forget to ask that. Like, but yeah, man. If you want to plug anything here, if you want to do any final shout outs, like, go ahead, man.
I'm good, dude. I'm good.
All right, Eric. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Right, take care, brother. I don't know where you got all that from. I've never said that.
What do you miss me to, Asher?
That podcast.